It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin in Nigeria, where the President of the Senate, Senator Ahmad Lawan, said the National Assembly would continue to work with President Muhammadu Buhari to find lasting solutions to the current insecurity in the country. This is coming as the 18-man ad hoc committee on security set up by the Senate to interface with the National Security Advisor, NSA, and the 3 service chiefs on the security challenges facing the country has failed to meet the 2-week deadline given to it to submit its report. Meanwhile, an alleged plan to stage public protests today on the state of insecurity in the country has drawn a swift condemnation from the presidency. The protest is also said to be aimed against the continued retention of service chiefs by President Muhammadu Buhari. This is causing concerns about the politicization of the military and command appointments, with the president's spokesman accusing the main opposition, People's Democratic Party, PDP, of sponsoring the march. However, PDP has fired back, saying the government should face its self-inflicted ordeal. Wow. Well, it's really quite discouraging that the ad hoc committee gave themselves a deadline and failed to meet their own deadline. So I want to start on that note. They should really put more effort into presenting this report and let's know what's really going on. Because it's not enough to say we're interested in solving the challenges if 18 people cannot come together and present reports. For me, that's not the best sign. More effort needs to be put in there. But regarding the protest, I do wish the federal government would stop discouraging people from exercising their rights to peaceful protest. Anybody can take to the streets about any matter, as long as they do not constitute a public nuisance, as long as they do not destroy property. They can. It's their right, and people have the right to express their anxiety anyhow they choose to. And public protest, for me, it's a civilized way of expressing yourself. There's nothing wrong with it. The government should stop demonizing people who try to exercise that option. That would really be helpful. This is a democracy. And this same government had quite the star-studded protest in 2014. I mean, there was the presidential aspirant, as he then was, Muhammadu Buhari, the governor of Rivers State, as he then was, Governor Amechi. All of them took to the streets, APC's national chairman at the time, accusing the Jonathan administration of similar omissions, I'll call it. And they were allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with peaceful protest.
Well, I think that, we should put all of this in context. One, it's in order for the National Assembly, either the House of Reps or the Senate, to say that they will cooperate with the executive arm of government to find solutions to the challenge of insecurity in Nigeria and to see how Nigeria can be made a safer place, not just for citizens, but for anyone who is within the Nigerian territory. The government itself had already said that, look, everybody should be involved in it, and that securing Nigeria, either at the communal level or at the state level or at the national level, is a collective responsibility. And indeed, anyone can play a role, either by providing information or intelligence or by conducting themselves after the fashion of good citizens. So whatever the National Assembly can do as their own input, even if it is to continue to draw attention to the challenge, is welcome. That's one leg of it. The second leg of it is that, yes, you are very right that people should not be discouraged from, expressing themselves, either through the, expression of their right to protest, which is a legitimate right. And in any case, even if you stop people in Nigeria from protesting, we have seen cases of Nigerians in other parts of the world, either in Europe or in North America, going out there to protest. Yeah. And hence, blaming people, passing the buck, scapegoating other persons or groups would not be the appropriate response from the federal government of Nigeria. I mean, a few days ago, we said on this program that the president himself was trying to scapegoat community leaders in Borno State. And we said, well, if he was seeking their support, that would be in order. But if he was blaming them, passing the buck, that would not be in order. As for the People's Democratic Party versus the federal government, well, a lot of partisanship there. And we think that the issue of resolving the security challenge in Nigeria should not be along partisan lines. It should be bipartisan, because everybody is involved. When the Boko Haram people attack communities or kill people, they don't ask them for their voting patterns. They don't ask for their party cards. They don't want to know whether you are PDP or APC or you belong to YPP. These are complete criminals, bandits, who are just wreaking havoc, across Nigeria. And in any case, you can say, if you flip it, that where, maybe the APC is coming from. Whatever the PDP is involved in, of course, naturally, the PDP being the largest opposition party, the APC would think, oh, this is all about partisanship. But it is not. Because you recall that the Christian Association of Nigeria has had cause to also go onto the streets in Ekiti and Ondo states. The Redeemed Christian Church of God had cause to protest from its headquarters in Ebute Metta all the way to all the communities in the Yaba environs, led by a major spiritual leader in Nigeria, Pastor Enoch Adeboye. So every Nigerian is concerned because security remains the biggest challenge. But what we will do is to appeal to the people who are going to protest on the streets of Abuja today to do so within the boundaries of the law, not to take the law into their hands, and for the security agencies not to be overzealous. Last year, the Nigeria police had said if you want to protest in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, you should be limited to a particular location, the Unity Fountain Garden. Now, I don't know how that is going to be resolved. But even if the people go onto the streets, they should not be harassed, they should not be intimidated, there should be no abuse of human rights or the use of excessive force.
Absolutely, and it's extremely disappointing that we always discourage a culture of protesting when in any democracy that is a culture that you should encourage. In other cities around the world, you see people protesting about matters that aren't even to do with the country that they're in, but to do with other countries around the world. In fact, in other parts of the world, you see people protesting for matters that are happening over here, yet it's something that we're still rejecting politically and stopping our people from doing, and it's absolutely wrong. As long as you're within the boundaries of the law, you have that right. And this is why a lot of Nigerian citizens, a lot of us don't know our rights and don't know what actually belongs to us, because the government of the day is always telling you that what belongs to you does not belong to you, and it's wrong, and it needs to stop. I don't know how the presidency plans on stopping a peaceful protest from happening. It's within the rights of the law. They have every single right to do so, so they should go on ahead and do so. At the end of the day, security is such a huge issue in Nigeria right now. None of us can deny that. We're sitting here every single day, and every single matter that we're discussing is revolving around insecurity in the country. So please, something has to be done. The government cannot say that people cannot protest this. It is their right. It's that simple.
And I think that the Nigerian government, the federal government, also has to worry about its image.
Yeah.
I mean, these protests are now occurring so regularly, and we've had, a particular pattern whereby whenever anybody is protesting against government, some pro-government persons will also go and organize some people who will say they are supporting government and they do not agree with the other group, the anti-government group. And oftentimes it degenerates into street violence. We hope that that will not happen today and that the security agencies will ensure that that kind of confrontation does not happen, and that the government will sit down and see all these protests across Nigeria as a comment, on its performance and as a reflection of the people's perception of the performance of the government at the federal level.
And they should see that everybody agrees with the opposition on the state of insecurity in the country. If they really want, well, except for them, if they really want to blame the opposition, it's not an opposition thing.
No, it's not. But people do support the government on that. But we'll take a short break now. We'll be back with more news headlines. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show. We're still on news headlines, and we have with us Rotus Odiri for Business News. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Hi, Rotus. Good morning.
Yeah, so this morning what we're doing is drawing a link between the recent economic data to come out of Japan and link it to Nigeria. So if you look at our screen here, we've got GDP for the fourth quarter and annualized GDP for the year. So Japan's fourth quarter GDP in the yellow circle contracted by 1.6%. If you annualize that, just 4 quarters in a year times 4, you get a contraction of 6.4% quarter on quarter annualized for the full year. That's in the red circle. Basically, this is as a result of the consumption tax that Japan increased in the fourth quarter of 2019. Now, what Japan has done here is to increase their tax as a result of their aging population. They've got an old population, a wide-ranging old population, and so welfare costs, those people are going to retire, they need to be taken care of, and welfare costs, Japan's welfare bill has been increasing. So as a result of this increase, we've seen consumption reduce, and as a result of consumption reducing, we've seen that effect on Japan's economy. Now, if you tie what's going on in Japan, now another quick thing is that over the last 30 years, this is basically Japan's VAT, just to tie it to Nigeria. This is essentially value-added tax. Over the last 30 years, Japan has increased their tax about 4 times. It was introduced in 1989 at 3%, 1997 it was increased to 5%, 2014 it was increased to 8%, 2019 it was increased to 10%. So it's been a gradual increase, staggered increase over the last 30 years. If you tie what's going on over there to Nigeria, we've seen a number of individuals, whether on social media or talking to people, talking about the effect of the value-added tax increase of 7.5% on phone calls, SMS messages, data purchases, and so on. Now, if you look at how the sector performed, Nigeria's ICT sector grew about 9.8% in the third quarter of 2019. That's the last economic data that we got. The ICT sector is made up of telecommunications, publishing, music, sound, and a number of other things. But this sector was the best performing. And when you think about what the implications could be on the best performing, one of the best performing sectors coming out of our GDP, it could possibly lead to the same contraction that you're seeing. Possibly. Now, the reason why I do have to add a caveat. I have to add a caveat here.
My reaction to
I have to add a caveat here. Again, ICT grew by 9.8%. Telcos, that is the telco sector, grew by about 12% in the third quarter. So here's the thing. If people are complaining about the fact that they are being charged on SMSs and phone calls and so on, they might pull back. If they pull back, 2 of the biggest telco firms in Nigeria are listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, that is MTN and Airtel. If you look at their performance for the last year, fiscal year 2019, a lot of their revenue came from voice and data. If we all now decide to pull back and not make as many phone calls or send as many SMSs, then that's going to impact their revenue, which is now going to impact the telecommunications sector, which now impacts the ICT sector, which now impacts overall GDP. The caveat, though, is that last quarter of the year was a festive period. Dirty December, party after party, so on and so forth. Everybody was sending messages to family coming into town, planning things and so on. So fourth quarter GDP for Nigeria will be in line with what we've seen for the year, which will be about 2%. We won't see this impact of the finance bill and the VAT increase until the first quarter of 2020, which will probably be in about a couple of months. But it is just good to see with what's happening in Japan. If we see a pullback in Nigeria, we'll see it in possibly about a couple months.
Are you expecting a contraction? Is that what you're...
I know, because he said we will.
If depending on how bad the pullback, and again, if Nigerians pull back on consumption the way the Japanese have done, then you could possibly see a reduction. But I'm not predicting a contraction yet, but you might see a reduction.
The important thing about the comparison with Japan is what lessons can we learn from Japan and the introduction of VAT.
Yes.
In 2014, when Japan increases VAT from 5% to 8%, what was discovered was that there was a sharp drop in household consumption. And the question that was asked then was, look, how will this affect the Japanese economy? Particularly considering the fact that the GDP to debt ratio in Japan is about over 200%, right, which is about the highest among the industrialized countries. So in 2016, the plan to further increase VAT was suspended. In 2017, it was suspended, right, and pushed to 2019. And then in October 2019, you had this latest increase in VAT.
Yes.
And of course, what they did was to provide buffer zones for households so that they will not be seriously hit.
Impacted, yeah.
And what the analysts have told us is that the effect this time around, since October, has been very modest. So you see a country that in trying to do what they call fiscal consolidation, that's what the Japanese are talking about.
Yes.
They have also taken measures to protect the citizens.
Yes.
And the reality is that now if you do financial electronic payments, you are protected, right? And then whatever gains come from the VAT, the additional revenue that the Japanese authorities get, they are putting it into Medicare, they are putting it into preschool, and everybody can see how that money is going to be spent.
Yes.
Now, and these are concrete lessons that can be learned. Here in Nigeria, the increase, the 2.5% increase in VAT is received by the public as a form of punishment. Governments do not have a responsibility to punish people.
Correct.
You know, they should protect the interests of the people, even when the objective is fiscal consolidation. That's the big lesson from Japan.
Very
Thank
good point.
you. So we'll take a short break now. We'll be back with sports headlines. Please stay with us.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to look at the latest headlines in sports today is Aaron Akirajala. Good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Leila.
You're on the bell.
Doctor.
Good morning.
Good morning. How was the weekend?
Yes, thank you. Good
It was
to have you
actually
here.
very busy weekend, I must actually say, from the NBA All-Star weekend that actually happened in Chicago to Manchester City. I think let's actually start it off from that point.
Arsenal suddenly waking up.
Yeah, Arsenal doing very well in the English Premier League. We'll be having a massive game with Manchester United. Well, Joe Judy Gallo will be playing later on today for Leila. Manchester United against Chelsea. Let's see how that one comes out.
Yeah.
But Manchester City have been in serious...
Any offense because he was, defending his identity.
Yeah,
That's one question. The second question, will you think that he himself provoked the crowd? Because when he scored that deciding goal, he was pointing to his skin color. And then the monkey chants followed. So who is at fault here? The referee, the player, or, the fans?
Now, I would like to look at it because when I saw the entirety of the incident played out yesterday night all through this morning, I've been watching quite a lot of commentaries on this. And I would say Marega actually, in as much as we do not support racial abuses, you do not go out also instigating people. Because there's one thing to actually celebrate in front of your home fans or the away fans that you support, that actually support you rather, than going to the opposing fans when you score a goal and you are pointing to your skin and actually almost inflaming them. And they threw chairs at him. He put a chair on his head and got angry and slammed the chair on the ground. That's violent conduct. You should get a yellow card for that, which he did. Although I felt the referee should have been a little bit more sensitive by looking at the incident.
By not taking sides.
But the referee was right to have given him a yellow card. And it was a yellow card that ultimately just got a rush of blood into his head, and he decided that he had enough of the game and he was going to leave the game. But the referee was right, because you cannot take a chair. Even though the chair was thrown at you, you should report to the referee if you have any qualms with that. Not taking the chair and breaking it on the pitch.
But in any case, we say no to racism.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And we're hoping the Super League actually takes... okay.
Thank you very much, Aaron. We'll see you
always a pleasure.
tomorrow.